The phone vibrated against the break room table. One sharp buzz. I reached for it, rubbing the back of my neck, expecting a message from the charge nurse. It was a photo from my cousin Jenna. She sent it by mistake. One tap opened the image. A screenshot of a text thread. The title of the group chat sat at the very top, locked in bold letters, "Call Mara." I stared at the glowing rectangle. Julian's profile picture sat next to a message sent 2 minutes ago. "I'm home, but don't tell her or she'll make me do it." A bubble popped up right beneath it. "My mother's number. Tell her you're dizzy. She'll come faster." The break room refrigerator hummed in the corner. The smell of burnt coffee hung thin in the air. My pulse, usually running on pure adrenaline after a 14-hour shift, slowed down to a heavy, methodical thump against my ribs. Decades of abandoned groceries. Years of rushing across town in the dark. Thousands of apologies pulled from my own throat because I was too tired to fix their perfectly timed disasters. It was never bad luck, it was a protocol. My crushing exhaustion was just a managed asset. I locked the screen. The phone went black. I slid it into my pocket, pushed my chair back, and stood up. My hands were perfectly steady. I am Mara. I am 38 years old, and for the last 12 years, my life has been measured in 14-hour ICU shifts and ventilator alarms. Death is allowed. Chaotic visitor in my ward. We fight it with chest compressions, adrenaline, and bruised knuckles. My reality is blood gases and frantic families holding on to cold hands. But outside those hospital double doors, my own family operated on a completely different frequency of emergency. My mother, Brenda, treated my days off like her personal concierge service. A text would ping at 7 in the morning. My father needed a ride to a routine dental cleaning. Julian, my 34-year-old brother, was simply too stressed to navigate morning traffic. Julian was always too stressed. He worked part-time selling insurance and spent his weekends recovering from the sheer exhaustion of his own existence. For a decade, I swallowed the frustration. They wrapped their exploitation in a warm, suffocating blanket called family duty. "We rely on you, Mara. You are the strong one." That is the terrifying genius of normalization. If you hear a lie enough times, you start enforcing it yourself. They conditioned me to apologize for needing basic human rest. I would come off a grueling night shift, eyes burning, knees aching from running on concrete floors, and actually feel guilty for skipping a Sunday potluck. Then there was Mia, Julian's 6-year-old daughter. She had these huge, watchful eyes and a quiet habit of holding onto the hem of my scrub top whenever I walked into a room. She was their ultimate, undeniable weapon. Julian figured out early on that I would endure any level of abuse if Mia was involved. A text would arrive on my only Saturday off. Sitter bailed. Might have to drag Mia to the sports bar with me. I would grab my car keys before the screen even faded to black. I practically raised that little girl on leftover hospital cafeteria bagels and stolen Sunday afternoons at the playground. They knew I loved her. They weaponized that love with absolute, surgical precision. The crack in the foundation happened exactly 3 weeks before Jenna leaked that group chat screenshot. We were in the middle of a brutal code blue. Room 4. A 50-year-old man was flatlining. The sound of cracking ribs echoed under my hands during compressions. Machine alarms screamed through the sterile air. Sweat stung my eyes. Then, my phone buzzed in my scrub pocket. Once, twice, 4 times in rapid succession, the emergency override. Someone was dead. Someone was bleeding out. I stepped away for exactly 10 seconds while another nurse took over chest compressions. I pulled the phone out, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was Brenda. "Can you order the grocery delivery to our house?" The app logged me out. The frantic adrenaline in my veins instantly turned to ice. I stepped into the dim supply closet and hit dial. She answered on the first ring, already sighing about a digital coupon code. I cut her off. "Do not call me again unless it is a life-or-death emergency." My voice was a low, flat line. The silence on the other end was heavy. Then came the sharp, dramatic inhale of extreme offense. She hung up. That was the boundary, my singular, desperate act of defiance. I assumed my bluntness had finally taught them to respect my time. I was completely wrong. I had just taught them to hide the strings. I poured a black coffee, sat at my kitchen island, and opened my old laptop. I had set up Brenda's tablet 3 years ago, and her messages still synced automatically to this machine. One click on the blue icon. The entire history of the Call Mara chat populated on my screen. I spent the next 3 weeks watching the machine operate in real time. Brenda was the floor manager of my exploitation. She dispatched the emergencies like a tactical officer. On a rainy Thursday, a new message popped up on the laptop screen. The basement flooded a little. Julian, go move the boxes before they soak. Julian's reply appeared 3 seconds later. Game is on. Tell Mara the water is near the old electrical panel. She's terrified of house fires. 4 minutes passed. My cell phone vibrated on the counter. Brenda's name flashed on the caller ID. I answered. Mara, honey, she said. Her voice carried a manufactured, breathless tremor. There's water in the basement. It's right near the main breaker. Your father isn't home and I'm just so scared to go down there. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from the absolute, chilling precision of the lie. Call a plumber, Mom. I am heading into a shift. I hung up the phone. I hit the keyboard shortcut. The screen flashed white. I dragged the screenshot into a new desktop folder titled Receipts. Julian was the most frequent customer. He wasn't a helpless, overwhelmed single father. He was simply lazy, and he used his own 6-year-old daughter as currency to buy his weekend freedom. Saturday morning. The laptop chimed. Julian, I have tea times at noon. Tell Mara that Mia is crying because she wants to go to the zoo and I have a headache. Brenda replied immediately. Send her a picture of Mia looking sad. A photo of my niece, clutching a stuffed bear and looking entirely bored. Arrived on my cell phone 2 minutes later. She's begging for her Auntie Mara. The text read, I feel terrible, but my migraines are back. I stared at the picture of that sweet little girl. They were actively teaching her that love was a transaction. They were using her innocent face to drain my bank account and my sanity. I took another screenshot. I dropped it into the folder. I started pulling back. I answered every third text. I declined the Sunday dinners. I refused the minor errands. The secret chat turned vicious. When I wouldn't drive my father to get the oil changed. Brenda complained to the group. She is so incredibly selfish lately. After everything we do for her. Julian's response was immediate and furious. Well, now I have to take my car in. Thanks a lot. Mara. That was the fatal flaw in their entire system. They never actually needed me. They were perfectly capable adults. They just hated the inconvenience of managing their own lives. If I didn't absorb their burdens, they had to carry them. The folder on my desktop grew heavier every day. 40 screenshots, 50, 62, a complete, undeniable clinical record of their disease. I was done being their medicine. I just needed the right moment to deliver the diagnosis. The distance made them restless. When you stop feeding a machine, the gears start grinding against each other. Brenda needed to test the boundary, to prove she still held the leash. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. My phone buzzed against the kitchen counter. I answered. Your father needs to go to the cardiologist, Brenda said. Her voice was sharp, laced with that familiar, manufactured urgency. Julian's car is making a weird noise. You need to come take him, now. It was the perfect trap. A medical appointment, a sick father. Refusing would instantly paint me as the monster. I opened my laptop. The blue chat icon glowed. Julian had typed his message exactly 40 seconds before Brenda called me. I just washed the car. Tell Mara to take Dad so I don't get stuck in crosstown traffic. I highlighted the text. I took the screenshot. I picked up the phone. No, I said. Excuse me, the volume of her voice spiked, hitting that shrill note of absolute authority. Are you really doing this right now? Your father? I hung up. I opened a direct message to Brenda. I attached the picture of Julian's text. I hit send. Then, I opened the Call Mara group chat, navigated to the settings, and clicked Leave Group. My phone went completely, utterly silent. The quiet lasted exactly 12 minutes. Then, the shockwave hit. Brenda skipped the apology. She bypassed any explanation. She went straight to war. She initiated a mass text to every aunt, uncle, and cousin in the family tree. My cousin Jenna forwarded it to me immediately. Please pray for Mara. The message read, the stress of the ICU has finally broken her. She is having a severe mental breakdown. She just yelled at me over the phone and abandoned her sick father. We are looking into getting her psychiatric help. Please give us privacy. It was a masterpiece of suburban warfare. Frame the victim as unstable, become the tearful, concerned martyr. In the old days, panic would have seized my chest. I would have frantically dialed every aunt, pleading my case, trying to prove my sanity to a jury already rigged against me. Today, my pulse stayed flat. I bypassed any emotional defense. I went straight to the desktop folder, 62 screenshots, 6 years of organized, tactical manipulation. I compressed them into a single file, 300 pages of their own words. Julian trading Mia's weekend visits for golf times. Brenda plotting fake dizzy spells to get me to buy groceries. I created a new group text. I added Brenda, Julian, and every relative on her prayer list. I uploaded the file. I added exactly one sentence. Here is the psychiatric breakdown, fully documented. I pressed send. I set the phone face down on the counter. I made a cup of tea. Steam curled into the cold air of my kitchen. Julian was supposed to call and curse. Brenda was supposed to fire off a furious manifesto defending her actions. Nothing happened. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then an entire hour. The silence from my family was absolute. It was deafening. It was the sound of an entire toxic ecosystem collapsing in on itself. You can argue with anger. You can gaslight tears. You cannot argue with a timestamp. 2 years passed, 2 quiet, unbroken years of absolute peace. The heavy, suffocating dread that used to sit on my chest every morning simply evaporated. My phone only rang for extra hospital shifts or friends asking to grab dinner. I painted my kitchen cabinets a bright, cheerful yellow. I learned to sleep through the night without waking up in a cold sweat, waiting for a manufactured catastrophe. I was finally just Mara. Then, on a cold Tuesday afternoon in November, the screen lit up with Julian's number. I answered out of pure instinct. His voice was frantic, breathless, vibrating with genuine panic. Mom fell down the concrete porch steps. Her hip is shattered. They are rushing her into surgery right now. You have to get to Mercy General, please. A real emergency. Bone splinters and blood loss. I grabbed my car keys. The fluorescent lights of Mercy General hummed with that familiar, sterile energy. I walked into the waiting area of the orthopedic surgical wing. Julian paced the scuffed linoleum floor, raking his hands through his hair. The moment he spotted me, his shoulders dropped 3 inches. He let out a massive sigh of relief and marched straight toward me. I was holding a thick plastic intake clipboard, heavy with insurance forms, emergency contact sheets, and surgical consent waivers. He thrust it directly toward my chest. "Thank God you are here," he exhaled, pushing the pen at my hand. "The orthopedic surgeon needs these filled out immediately, and the billing department keeps asking about her secondary Medicare coverage. I have no idea what her policy number is." I shifted my weight and stepped cleanly to the side. The plastic clipboard bumped awkwardly against his own stomach. I kept my hands buried deep inside my jacket pockets. "I am here to see Mom," I said. My voice was a flat, clinical line, the exact tone I used to read a flatlining monitor. "I am not filling out her paperwork." Julian's face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated confusion. He stared at the clipboard, then back at me. Through the open sliding glass door of Trauma Bay 4, Brenda lay on a hospital gurney. She was heavily medicated, pale, and gripping the bed rails. She heard our exchange. She weakly propped herself up on one elbow, her eyes wide with fear. "Mara, please," she whimpered, her voice cracking. "My hip is broken in 2 places. I am terrified. Who is going to talk to the doctors? Who is going to handle everything?" I looked at my mother, fragile and injured. Then I looked at my 34-year-old brother, a fully capable adult clutching a ballpoint pen like it was an alien artifact. I looked at the 3 aunts standing nervously by the vending machines. "For the first time," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the quiet hallway. "All of you." I turned my back on Trauma Bay 4 and walked straight out the double doors. The crisp November wind hit my face the second I cleared the hospital awning. I spent the next 3 weeks waiting for the inevitable collapse. I waited for the frantic voicemails telling me they failed, that Brenda lost her insurance coverage, that the medical bills ruined them. The collapse never arrived. Julian sat down and figured out the Medicare forms. My aunts organized a comprehensive daily meals schedule. Brenda underwent surgery and recovered beautifully in a rehabilitation facility. They researched and booked themselves. They effortlessly managed every single logistical nightmare they always claimed they were entirely helpless against. That was the final, devastating truth. They never needed me. They simply preferred using me. That realization carried a sharp, bitter sting for exactly 1 evening. Then, an overwhelming, permanent wave of relief washed the bitterness away forever. Today, my life is entirely my own. My weekends belong to me. I take my niece Mia to the city zoo on Sunday mornings, purely as an aunt, with absolutely no strings or negotiations attached. I drink my morning coffee in my bright yellow kitchen. My phone stays quiet. The silence used to terrify me. Now, it sounds exactly like freedom. The aftermath was not a sudden, explosive confrontation. It was a slow, agonizing, bureaucratic suffocation. Brenda's shattered hip required a titanium pin and a 21-day stay at the Oak Creek Rehabilitation Center, without me there to bully the insurance adjusters, file the itemized medical appeals, and untangle the secondary Medicare coverage. Julian missed the critical pre-authorization window. The hospital billing department denied the entire catastrophic coverage claim. The out-of-pocket penalty landed at exactly $18,400. Brenda had to liquidate a substantial portion of her retirement portfolio just to cover the initial deposits. Julian had to cancel his country club membership and sell his spotless sports utility vehicle to hire a part-time home health aide. My aunts, who spent years praising Brenda's fake martyrdom, lasted exactly 14 days on the rotating meal train schedule. By the third week, they were loudly complaining at Sunday church service about Brenda's endless, petty demands and Julian's absolute refusal to lift a single finger to help his own mother. The perfectly curated suburban image cracked right down the middle. The congregation stopped praying for my mental health and started gossiping about their spectacular dysfunction. They finally had to chew on the exact same exhaustion they had force-fed me for 12 straight years. 8 months later, the phantom struck one last time. It was a rainy Tuesday morning. My phone buzzed on the kitchen island. A voicemail from an unknown number. I pressed play. The familiar, breathy voice filled the room. Mara, honey, it is Mom. It has been so long. Whatever mistakes were made, I was only trying to keep us together. I am still your mother. You are breaking my heart. The engineered pause, the deliberate, shaky sigh, the ultimate guilt trip, packaged and delivered right to my doorstep. I leaned against the marble counter and watched the rain streak down the window pane. My pulse stayed perfectly slow. The adrenaline spike never came. My chest remained completely hollow of any panic or obligation. I pressed the trash can icon. I navigated to the deleted folder and permanently erased the file. I washed my coffee mug and put it in the drying rack. The umbilical cord of guilt was completely severed. That evening, my dining room table was crowded, not with relatives holding empty plates and expecting me to fill them, but with my chosen family. 3 nurses from the intensive care unit, a respiratory therapist, and my next-door neighbor. People who understand that love means showing up in the trenches alongside you, not sitting back and handing you a shovel. Sitting right beside me was Mia. Julian's ex-wife has primary custody, and we coordinate her visits directly. No Julian, no Brenda, just a bright, laughing 6-year-old girl drawing dinosaurs on a paper napkin, completely shielded from the toxic machine that tried to use her as a bargaining chip. The house was loud, warm, and entirely mine. If you are listening to this, and you recognize that crushing, invisible weight on your own shoulders, I need you to hear me. There is a clinical term for what my family ran. It is called weaponized incompetence. It is a calculated psychological strategy where highly capable adults intentionally perform basic tasks poorly, or claim absolute ignorance, simply to outsource their physical and emotional load to the person with the lowest ability to say no. Weaponized incompetence is a slow poison. It starts small, a forgotten deadline, a misplaced document, a fabricated dizzy spell. Before you know it, you are managing 3 different households while they sit on the couch complaining about the television remote. They trade their dignity for your unpaid labor. In the intensive care unit, incompetence gets a patient killed. In a suburban family dynamic, incompetence gets you a free chauffeur, a free financial advisor, and a free punching bag. I spent 38 years believing their manufactured helplessness was my personal responsibility. I had to learn the truth the hard way. But you can have it right now. Write these 3 rules down and pin them to your mirror. Rule number 1. Being needed is not the same thing as being loved. People who exploit you will constantly mask their demands as affection. They will tell you that you are the strong one. They will call you the rock of the family. That is not a compliment. That is a job description. They do not love you. They love the utility of you. They love the appliance. The moment the appliance stops dispensing free labor, their conditional love immediately turns into hostility. Real love asks how you are doing. Transactional love asks what time you can pick up the dry cleaning. Rule number 2. Silence and absence are the most devastating, unarguable responses to manipulation. Toxic people thrive on engagement. If you argue with them, you give them a script. You give them something to twist, something to show the neighbors, something to cry about. When you simply walk away and refuse to speak their language, their entire stage collapses. You cannot gaslight an empty room. You cannot argue with a time-stamped screenshot. Let them rage at the silence. Rule number 3. The moment you stop carrying someone else's manufactured burdens, you finally have the energy to build your own life. Energy is a finite resource. Every ounce of panic you spend fixing their preventable disasters is an ounce of joy stolen from your own future. Let them fall. Let them face the consequences of their own laziness. It is not a tragedy when an adult is forced to manage their own life. It is simply gravity. Look at the people around you. Who is constantly claiming they have no one else, who is always just a little too stressed, a little too confused, a little too overwhelmed to handle their own basic responsibilities. Watch what happens when you step back. Watch how quickly the helpless miraculously figure it out when the free ride abruptly ends. If you are the designated fixer in a family that only calls when they need a sweatshop of one, take this as your sign to clock out permanently. Have you ever stepped back and watched your quote-unquote helpless family suddenly figure it out on their own? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one of them. It reminds us all that we were never actually crazy. Hit the subscribe button for more stories about finding peace in the aftermath. I am Mara, and I am free.